Demetrius, thanks for joining me here today on this Vegan Plant-Based Summit. How are you?
I'm doing well. I feel great. I feel amazing, and I'm excited to chat with you all.
I noticed that I can see some form of light going on there. Are you in the sun?
Yes, it's bright and sunny. I'm in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico currently, and it is gorgeous here. It is.
So you're a serial entrepreneur. You have your own record label. You have your own t-shirt company, merchandising company. You're an author. You're a DJ. You're a public speaker. And you have lots and lots of businesses. You have your pizza business. You have your travel club. Tell me all about that.
Well, everything that I've done as an entrepreneur has all been led by just staying true to my convictions and my spirit and my moral compass. And, throughout the years, my interests have evolved. But my core interest has always been liberation. It's always been social uplift. And so every iteration of my life as an entrepreneur has somehow related back to, social uplift in some way or another.
And I noticed that from both your travel club and your t-shirt, you're investing in young Black millennials.
Back in 2005, actually, is when I started my first business with some of my friends from undergrad. I went to Vanderbilt University, and we started a t-shirt company. And it had a very controversial name, which is Dangerous Negro. And a lot of people, obviously, they hear that name and it's jarring on initial contact. But this was what Dr. Martin Luther King was called after the March on Washington by the FBI. The file that they wrote up on him labeled him as the most dangerous Negro in America, because he was able to move people beyond the status quo intellectually, and was able to organize massive groups of people to oppose some of the things that the government was trying to force down our throats here in the United States. And then that phrase tended to turn up a bit more often in the years to follow with the Black Panther Party and other Black leaders who were given this label as dangerous Negroes. And so that was something that, we wanted to first and foremost highlight. And we wanted to give people, something to talk about and, create the initial conversation. So they would say, hey, why would you name your company Dangerous Negro? And so we could have that conversation and say, hey, this is about enlightening people. This is about having conversations which empower people. And so, that was the initial premise of founding the t-shirt company.
And what's your best-selling t-shirt slogan?
The best-selling t-shirt has always been "Smart is the new gangster." And, because we had unfortunately fallen into a pattern where gangsterism was glorified for the wrong reasons. And so we wanted people to realize, the most controversial thing that you can be, the biggest challenge to the status quo, is to be educated and enlightened. That's when the world power structures and systems will start to first and foremost take notice of you, but also feel that you're a threat is when you're educated and enlightened.
So I've heard you speak about intellectualism. Do you want to explain a little bit more about intellectualism and how you stand on that?
Well, yeah, it's about seeking the truth. The truth is the only thing that will ever set you free. And so a lot of times we create these illusions for ourselves because first and foremost, they're convenient, they're comfortable, but sometimes they defy the truth. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes it forces you to do things that are inconvenient. However, you will never be satisfied when you live in an illusion world. You have to seek the truth, no matter how inconvenient it might be.
You were on a program on NBC with Marlon Hall, and you were there in the capacity of your nonprofit organization. And you had a discussion where Marlon actually said, hold on a second, there has to be friction for change to happen. And that goes through the whole of society. And that's also part and parcel of hip hop, isn't it? You know, there's friction there. And as a DJ, you'd know a lot about that. So would you care to explain how hip hop can actually cause friction, but move people on in a positive way?
Most definitely. You know, I think hip hop for Black Americans has been the most revolutionary force that we've created. And it's truly the only American music, in my opinion, because there's so many different things that are infused in it from the inception of the United States. There's blues, there's, rhythm and blues, soul music, and all of that had to happen prior to hip hop coming out and being the voice of rebellion and saying, you know what, we don't care what it is that the status quo says is polite to say. We don't care that this hurts people's feelings. This is how we feel. And we're going to tell you how things are from our perspective, whether you think they're vulgar or not, whether you can, understand our perspective or not. We're going to speak our truth. And so in that way, I think hip hop has been such a revolutionary force. And me as a DJ, it's beautiful to see people not only have a good time, listening to this, but also outside of that, just being completely rebellious to what we're told is how things should be. And so, that's why music it plays such a vital factor in my life. And, I love being a DJ as a result.
You love being a DJ so much, and you love music so much that you have your own record label.
So yeah, let me tell you about that. Our t-shirt company, Dangerous Negro, as a result of just making connections with different artists through our apparel, supplying clothes for video shoots and tours and things like that. We became friends with a guy named Rhymefest, who, he's written a lot of songs with Kanye West, was one of his major collaborators, and, a very intellectual human being. And so it was a natural connection, and just through having our conversations with him and, the success of our clothing line, we said, hey, man, let's do a project together. And, we put out his second album, and this is a Grammy Award winning artist. He'd already won a Grammy prior to us working with him, and he went on to win a subsequent Grammy. But Dangerous Negro Entertainment was the evolution of the t-shirt company. And, it was beautiful. We did that project. We haven't done any projects since then, namely because the music industry, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. It's actually a lot harder to make money just putting out music than people realize. But I won't rule out doing another project in the future.
And Dangerous Negro is also the title of your book. I Am a Black Man. So what's your book about? It's obviously about you, but tell me more about what it's about.
Well, yeah. So, I wrote a book, namely because I came to a point in my life where I couldn't proceed forward without getting certain ideas and thoughts and emotions off my chest. I came to, I was unproductive at work because there were just so many things that I had bottled up that were making it difficult for me to really be productive in other ways. And so, I took 18 months off and I wrote this book that had been inside of me for a number of years. And, it's titled, I Am a Black Man, The Evolution of a Dangerous Negro. And, to be a dangerous Negro today, considering what we've seen happen to the other dangerous Negroes who have existed, who were assassinated, by the government or disrupted by the federal government here in the United States. Being a dangerous Negro means being strategic. You really have to follow the truth wherever it leads you. and not be ashamed about following the truth and broadcasting the truth to the general public. But doing so in a way that is more modern. We have the internet now, we have modern means of communication. And so doing it in a way that doesn't necessarily compromise my life on a daily basis, but allows me to get this message out to the masses.
So you talk about following the truth. How did you become vegan, and what truths were behind you becoming vegan?
The funny thing is, I really truly believe I was always vegan. However, I grew up, and all of us have grown up in a world that's not vegan. And so, we become, certain behaviors become normalized, despite how barbaric they might be, how much they contradict science. We've normalized certain behaviors because it's, we live in a world where this is just how things are. And I've always questioned how those things came to be. As a child, I can recall my parents, buying lobster for, big family get-togethers, whether it be the Super Bowl or, a big sporting event, and always feeling empathy for the lobsters, and for the other animals, and saying, well, why do we do this? Why do we, they put them in a bathtub on ice until they were ready to be cooked, and then, throw them in a pot of boiling water. And I'd say, man, that's terrible. Why would we do that? And, they can't feel it. They can't feel pain. They're not intelligent enough to feel pain. They don't have a brain or nervous system like we do. And I was just like, well, that doesn't really make sense to me, because the whole world that we live in, everything responds to pain. Everyone runs away from pain and torture, regardless of whether you think they have a big enough brain or not. And, I always had those questions. It took me 36 years to realize that I had been forced into a way of thinking that conflicted with my own moral compass. And so, when people say that you're first and foremost, you're against rape, torture, and murder, why does that end at human beings? Why would you not extend that to everything that lives and breathes on Earth? Why do you, put a wall up and say, I'm against rape, torture, and murder for human beings, but when it comes to animals, that's just the way things are. It's morally inconsistent. And I realized I was morally inconsistent. And once I was awakened to that truth, I went vegan overnight. I went cold turkey. I mean, I didn't have to transition. It was, I had an epiphany one night, and it was like a light switch went off, and I couldn't go back to my former life.
I know from researching you care about the environment as well. How does that factor into your veganism?
Well, we know for a fact that we're destroying our planet. And, currently we have only one world in which human beings can exist. So, I know Elon Musk is working on us getting to Mars. And, I think the universe actually has created a filter for intelligent life to be confined until it evolves to the point where it is smart enough to value every single resource and every single life that exists on a certain world. And so I think that's what's prevented us, honestly, from being able to, move throughout the galaxy and colonize and populate other worlds, is we just have not evolved as human beings to the point where it makes sense for us to be able to inhabit other worlds and do it to the point where we don't ravage the resources and destroy and plunder and do things out of greed. And so we know for a fact right now we can experience the global warming effects here on planet Earth. I live in Houston, Texas, and in the past 5 years alone, we've had major catastrophic weather-related events. We've had major flooding. We had just 2 months ago in February, we had a major snow event that's never happened in Houston, Texas, where the entire city was frozen and everyone lost power and electricity because that just never happened in Houston. Our homes were not equipped for it. And so we can see the erratic behavior that's happening with our climate right before our eyes. We can't deny it any longer. And so to experience these things and experience these weather-related events and continue operating, doing business as normal makes no sense. It's very immature, first and foremost, and it's very selfish to continue thinking that we can do business as normal when these things are happening in real time.
What do you think the number one contributor to global warming and climate change is?
Oh, well, I firmly believe that it's animal agriculture. Because animal agriculture in numerous ways contributes to climate change. It's not just the methane that's emitted from, livestock. It is the fact that we have to clear forest land in order for this livestock to graze. It's the fact that we have to transport these things. It's the fact that, we destroy our oceans in order to, feed people seafood, and the oceans actually are algae. We need this stuff to pull carbon out of the atmosphere and bury it deep into the earth. And so when we destroy our oceans, we are inhibiting the earth's ability to heal itself. So not only are we destroying our oceans for animal agriculture, we're destroying our forests, our rainforests. And then, the consumption of these things, we're emitting enormous amounts of carbon dioxide and methane into our atmosphere that are the direct results of people eating animals. And so, there's a trifecta of natural occurrences that happen when we, conform to this type of bad behavior. And it doesn't make sense. We have to obey the truth and say, hey, here are the things that we know to be true. And we got to move beyond it. We have to mature as a species and say, all right, yes, maybe it is convenient to be able to have nutrient dense resources that we can consume that are readily available. However, in the long run, how does this benefit us as a human species? It doesn't. It doesn't benefit any of us.
So, talking about human benefits and veganism, how can people who are thinking about going plant-based vegan, how can they actually realize the benefits of this? I mean, there's two types of veganism. There's the junk food veganism, and then there's the plants. From your experience, how have you seen people, including yourself, who have gone vegan improve their health and lifestyles?
Oh, well, I can tell you this. I've never been a person that was too concerned about my weight. I just naturally been thin. However, I did have, a series of doctor's appointments where my blood pressure was high. And I couldn't figure it out because, like I said, I'm a thin person, but my blood pressure it wasn't making sense. And, I didn't realize it was the cholesterol and saturated fat that I was consuming 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that were causing me to have bad health in my mid-30s. As, anyone who looked at me, who didn't know me would say, oh, you're skinny, you don't need to worry about what you eat. But internally, I was dying. I was killing myself. So, I can tell you now, my blood pressure is great. My cholesterol is amazing. I just had a physical last month. My results speak for themselves. I feel amazing. And, and most people don't realize I'm 39 years old, and people will meet me and they say they can't believe that I'm 39 years old. And then I meet older vegans and I see people who are in their 60s and 70s, and I meet them and I can't believe their ages. And I'm like, wow, what's the secret? Well, I've been vegan for a number of years, and it's literally the only thing that scientifically has been proven to slow down the process of aging. And there are other benefits. There's sexual health benefits, and people can look that information up. Some of it was featured in the documentary The Game Changers, where doctors are examining the sexual health benefits. And so now we have to question, why is it that, you know, everything on earth obeys the rule of survival of the fittest, right? And so those beings who are the fittest will live on to pass their genes on to another generation. So when we talk about the sexual health benefits of veganism, and we see that vegans seem to be not have to artificially take supplements in order to continue their natural human behavior in that department. Why is that? You know, and that's a clear indication to me that Earth is telling us, well, we need you to continue passing on your genes to the next generation, because it's beneficial for people who obey these rules to be able to, reproduce. So, you know, there are huge benefits there in that department that I think people are unaware of. I was unaware of before I went vegan. It wasn't a motivating factor, but it definitely is a benefit. And, health-wise, like I said, I feel great. And my blood work speaks for itself.
Now, you're a motivational speaker as well. Where would somebody go to actually hear you speak about the environment and veganism and all of the things that are important to you?
Well, you can connect with me online, DemetriusWalker.com. And I do need to update it. It hasn't been updated since prior to the pandemic. The pandemic, obviously, for a lot of public speakers, has been a challenge. But once again, we ask ourselves, why are we in the midst of a pandemic in the first place? Well, you know, when you breed trillions of animals, specifically for the purpose of human consumption, you give the earth numerous opportunities to introduce pathogens that will disrupt our daily lives. And so, you know, the pandemic has kind of disrupted any of the public speaking that I have done previously. It looks like we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, fortunately, with the pandemic. I've been vaccinated now since January, and I know hundreds of millions of people have been as well. However, you know, if we don't go away from animal agriculture, you know, this is going to be a more and more frequent occurrence where we're going to have to isolate ourselves. And I won't be able to speak to large crowds of people as I have been accustomed to for the past 20 years. So primarily I've been isolated to, you know, having chats like this online and, you know, voicing my opinion through written pieces, either through my website or other mediums.
Talking about websites, I know that you have a vegan pizza out there. Tell us all about this vegan pizza, because people associate pizza with mozzarella and animal food. But tell us about the vegan pizza.
Well, you know, I was inspired to create, it's called Meek's Vegan Pizza. And my son is 9 years old. And unfortunately, you know, and here's where society and our parents and the wrong thinking kind of influence children. I remember my son did not like to eat meat or cheese at all as a toddler. And, you know, me and my ex-wife would try to force it down his throat. Oh, you got to eat this to be healthy, because we had been conditioned to believe that was the truth, and it was a lie. And, you know, we forced him to like meat and cheese. And, you know, then, you know, a couple of years later, when I came to the realization that this was completely false, and I was actually harming him more than I was helping him, and I tried to convert him over to veganism the way that I had gone, it was difficult because, you know, first of all, cheese in particular is extremely addictive. The casomorphins, I mean, you're talking about a substance that's more addictive than, you know, cocaine and illicit drugs, you know, that people are putting in their bodies on a daily basis. So you're completely physically addicted to this stuff. And, you know, children like to eat very basic foods. They love pizza. You know, they have pizza parties at school. You know, pretty much any event that's child related, there's going to be pizza there. There's going to be hamburgers. There's going to be nuggets and that kind of stuff. And I was motivated to develop something that parents can give their children at an early age that they would like and would find tasty and that they're accustomed to eating, that was plant-based 100%, to try to break them out of the addictive habit before they become adults, because it's a lot harder as an adult to break the habit versus trying to break it as a child. And so that's where the inception of Meek's Vegan Pizza came from, was I need to develop something that my son, he was 6 years old at the time, he's 9 now, but I need to develop something that he can eat, that even as a child, it tastes great. And he doesn't think it's too strange to eat or odd or out of place. It doesn't feel that, he's a different type of kid from his friends. And that's really where the idea came from. I really wanted children and parents alike to be able to enjoy a comfort food that they're very familiar with, that is 100% plant-based.
How important is it to educate kids on diet, especially diet and exercise, right from the beginning?
It's critical, because I grew up here in the United States. We have this thing called the food pyramid. And I remember seeing this thing through elementary school, middle school, and they tell you, they have, at the bottom of the pyramid, there's some fruits and vegetables and grains. And then as you start going up the pyramid, you start seeing the dairy and the meat and that stuff. And, everyone's striving to get to the top of the pyramid. That's where all the rewards are. We're top of the food chain. That's what we've tricked ourselves into believing as human beings. And we want to have the highest rewards and goals. So we have to recondition children from a very early age, not only health-wise, but ethically, because it doesn't make any sense why we allow children to understand that they need to be very nice to pets, domesticated dogs and cats, but all the other animals don't matter. We can, torture them and chop them up into little pieces and eat them whenever we feel like, because that's just the way things are. So, it's very critical to, install that sense of empathy in children, and common sense and, science. We have to stop running away from science. It starts at an early age. It really affects the way you view the rest of your life.
There's a lot of science that now backs up that plant-based vegans it is the best diet to follow. And you're right when you say that the food pyramid in the United States, it gives the wrong message. And same for the one in the UK. Now, the one that I follow, and a lot of vegans that I know follow, is the Harvard My Plate, which was designed by Dr. Bernard, who's also a vegan. That's the best plate that I've found so far, because it says that take the dairy out, take the meat out, just eat grains, just eat fruit, just eat veg, and you'll be fine. How do you feel about what people think a vegan diet is?
I think people have a misconception because, some people hear the word vegan and they immediately are like, oh, it's nasty. It doesn't taste good. Or, I'm missing out. I'm missing out on something that I've earned my right as a human being at the top of the food chain to have. And no, since becoming vegan, I eat way more diverse food than I've ever eaten before previously. I like to, challenge myself to try things that even if they don't necessarily look appealing to me, to see how they taste. And so I've become way more adventurous. Food is a lot more exciting to me now as a vegan than it was previously, when I was conditioned to pretty much eat the same four things, whether it be, beef, pork, chicken, or fish. So my menu is a lot more diverse. It's a lot more fun to find food and find things that I like. And so, we have to, condition people to, first of all, seek new things, seek adventure, and just make people realize that, hey, man, your daily habit of, waking up and, having bacon and eggs and milk for breakfast, and then lunch, you're going to eat some chicken, and then nighttime, you're going to eat first of all, you're hurting yourself, you're hurting the planet, and you're hurting other human beings in the process.
If you were to give one bit of advice to people thinking about going plant-based and vegan, what would it be?
Do it. Go. You don't have to have some type of master plan to do it. I know people who, say, oh, well, I got to slowly transition and take things away. No, start today. Just make up your mind that I'm going to be ethically consistent in my beliefs. I will no longer support rape, torture, and murder of any living thing. I will no longer support committing violence against my own body, because right now we know for a fact, if we look at the blue zones around the world where people on average live to 100 years of age or older, there's one thing that's very consistent in these populations, and it's the fact that they eat little to no animals whatsoever. And we have all of this data, millions of people studied, where we can verify that this is actually the truth. And if you are a person who cares about the truth, there's only one right way. There's only one truth. So we have to stop allowing people to live in these illusions that society has created for them and that we've created for ourselves. So that's what I would tell somebody. Do it today. I didn't have a plan when I went vegan. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I wasn't going to eat animals anymore. And then I figured everything out afterwards.
And you mentioned blue zones. There's a blue zone in California. It's Loma Linda, where the Seventh-day Adventist church are big. And there's also Okinawa in Japan. Do you have any background on those two communities?
I visited Loma Linda for the first time last year. I went out to, it's called the Inland Empire in California. And wine country, Southern California wine country is very close. And John Sally has a restaurant there called Cafe Organics, which is very close to Loma Linda, a vegan restaurant that blew my mind. It was delicious. And, I wish I could thank him in person. John Sally's, a big vegan. And, after I went vegan, I started to see him online talking a little bit about why he decided to go that way. Yes, Loma Linda, California, despite the fact that, the rest of the United States still eats the standard American diet, which, SAD, when you spell out the initials, SAD, it's very sad, the standard American diet. But we see these pockets of populations where people defy the statistics. And every time it just so happens that they don't eat animals. And so it's common sense, there's only one truth. We have to stop denying it and pretending it doesn't exist. Everyone out there, anyone who can hear my interview, ask yourself whether or not you obey the truth or whether or not you are comfortable living in the illusion that you've created for yourself and that society has created for you. And that's it. If you're a truth seeker, it's a no-brainer. If you want to live in an illusion that, causes destruction to yourself, causes destruction to your family, causes destruction to the earth, and causes destruction to the other living beings on the earth, you really have to ask yourself, whether you're selfish enough to live with that and pass that on to other generations of people that follow you. And that's really it at the end of the day. It's not about me being pushy or trying to ram my philosophy down people's throats. There's only one truth. Live in truth, live in righteousness, and we will all benefit from it. And that's it. So whether or not people like you and I decide that is the ethical thing to do, that our moral compass leads us to veganism, actually has very little effect on consumerism. And the reason why that is because in the majority of the civilized, quote unquote, civilized world, animal agriculture is subsidized by our tax dollars. And so despite the fact that I'm 100% vegan and I have been so for a number of years, my tax dollars still fund animal agriculture, whether I like it or not. These farmers are incentivized to produce meat and dairy, whether or not it gets consumed on the grocery store shelves. They are compensated. And, every year, just in the past few years in the United States, under the Trump administration, they were giving several bailouts and their subsidies were increased. And even under the current Biden administration, I just read 2 days ago that they're going to give some bailouts to our farmers in the livestock and dairy industry. And so, these types of things, we have to really force governmental changes and attitude. Because at this point, it is a conflict of interest for governments to continue subsidizing animal agriculture, because we look at our healthcare costs. Healthcare is a big issue in the United States. There's so many people who are against what they call socialized healthcare. It's a huge expense. But if the government were to have to foot the bill for all of the people who die from heart disease every year, from cancer every year, from hypertension, from diabetes, from arthritis, from Alzheimer's, all of these things that we know now are related to diet, I believe that they would be more prone to advocate a plant-based diet to the general population. And so we really have to put a lot of pressure on our governments, on our politicians, our elected officials to say, hey, numbers don't add up here. This is costing the government more than it should in order to take care of all these people who continuously get sick and are burdened with, things such as obesity, high blood pressure, so many dietary related diseases that are preventable, that people are having to foot the bill for unnecessarily. And so we really, really have to lobby, put together organizations that lobby. One organization, which I'm very familiar with, is called Liberation 360. And I highly encourage anyone who can hear this to look into Liberation 360 in the United States. One of the founders, she goes by Vegan Batgirl, Connie Spence, brilliant woman. I chat with Connie from time to time. I met her at an animal sanctuary, and she's the one who informed me that our tax dollars subsidize animal agriculture, despite the fact that we're vegans, and that really made me angry. So yes, we really have to encourage our politicians and make phone calls, emails, knock on their doors, whatever it is that's necessary to make them realize this doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense, and it's hurting everyone. It's going to take our governments, really making that transition, because when you have corporate interests who, they put out deceptive information that contradicts everything that we know to be true. And our entire medical establishment, unfortunately, conforms to, many of these messages that these corporations put out. It really takes governmental nudging of people, economic nudging, and, political nudging for the masses to really move away from this terrible behavior. And we do this in many other ways. When it comes to economic nudging, we incentivize people to move towards behavior that benefits the masses in so many other ways. For instance, if there's a crowded area, there are not enough parking spaces, they put up signs that say, if you park here, you will either be towed or you will be fined, and you have to pay, you'll get a ticket for parking in the wrong place, because there's just not enough places for people to park around this area. And so that incentivizes people to seek parking elsewhere. And that's where governments are important. We have to incentivize people to eat elsewhere, because it's costing society way too much to have to, I have to share the healthcare burden of people who decide that they want to eat meat 3 or 4 times a day. And that I shouldn't have to pay for that. When we know clearly that this is not wise. It doesn't benefit you to continue doing this So why are my tax dollars going to support, everyone who has these unnecessary dietary related conditions? And so, yes, it's critical. We really have to, take this fight to the governmental level.
So this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you for joining me here today on this vegan plant-based summit. And I wish you well with all of your entrepreneurial ventures, including your travel company that you're in the midst of promoting post-COVID.
Yes. Thank you so much. I really just appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts with everyone. And I'm very inspired by you and what you're doing, because this is critical. More and more people have to, first and foremost, vegans have to feel comfortable sharing their truth, because so often we're persecuted and we feel threatened by society at large. We kind of make our voices smaller because we don't want to upset people. We have a reputation for being, here comes the vegan, that annoying person who's going to force me to feel bad about my lifestyle. We have to keep our foot on the gas, because, the longer we allow people to be comfortable and, sticking to the status quo, the longer we're going to continue to keep ourselves in intellectual bondage to bad ideas. So, I definitely thank you for giving me this platform, and I would love to support you in any way that I can in getting the message about veganism out to more people.